Welcome to church. I'm open to Psalms right now. I gotta get to Exodus. Sorry. Welcome to church, everyone. Everybody online, everybody in this room. Welcome to church. I know we took like a little week break type of thing, but welcome back. So today, something that I was kind of like studying on just in the past week ish, past couple days more like. But I was studying on Moses. I feel like Moses is a pretty important person in the Bible. Quite a quite a roller coaster it was with him. How he went from you know someone who was kind of uh someone who like wasn't really listening to what God was saying, like someone who was like, why me, why, and you'll see, I'll get into it in a sec. But he went from someone who kind of was doubting God to somebody who became one of the most faithful people recorded in the Bible. So it being Moses, we're going to be going through Exodus, the first like 14-ish chapters. Not, we're not going to be reading every verse, but we're going to kind of go through, you know, through those chapters, kind of take a few things from each chapter. So before we get into it, I'm going to give us a little backstory on Moses. So Moses, he was born as an Israelite, right? Hebrew Israelite. Now, of course, the problem with this was back then in Egypt, the Israelites were getting oppressed by the Egyptians, right? Um, so the Pharaoh, he turned all the Israelites into slaves. He was like, "Yep, you guys, you get no freedom. You're going to be a slave now." So that's what he did with them. But not only did he do that, he even after he turned them into slaves, he still found out that the Israelite population, it was growing like way too much to like a powerful number, and he was like, well, we can't have that happening. So he decided that, you know what, every male child that was born an Israelite should be cast into the Nile. If you're a female Israelite, you're spared from that, but a male child, as soon as they're born, just cast them. Um, so that's the decree that he had made. Now, Moses was one of these kids who was born, and again, as an Israelite, during this whole thing that was happening. But rather than being cast into the Nile, God had a different plan for him. So what happened? So his mother, she hid Moses for a few months, and then it came to a point where she could no longer hide him. It was she could no longer, keep him from the Egyptian army. So what happened to him? Well, she made a little basket for him, and what she decided to do is she decided to have him float down the Nile River in this little basket for him. Um, Now, of course, during this time that he was floating down the Nile, Pharaoh's daughter was actually bathing in the Nile. And now, when she was bathing, she heard a baby crying. Now, she was like, what? Like, why would there be a baby, like in the Nile, like floating down crying and stuff? So she opened up the basket and she found the little baby. And of course, that little baby being Moses. Um, So that's how he got his name, by the way, because she took pity on the baby, so she decided that she would take him in. Although she did pay like somebody else to take care of Moses, and then when it came time, then she was like, "Yeah, no, he's my child." But she took pity on him. He became her son, and she named him Moses. Now, so that's the little backstory on him, right? So he was born during a time of Israelite oppression. He was going to be He was ordered to be killed as a baby, but he was spared, ultimately through God, but because Pharaoh's daughter found him, and yeah, he was spared from that death. Now, and he grew up, by the way, in the he was Pharaoh's daughter's son, he grew up in the palace. So he was an Israelite growing up in the palace, right? Now, this was many years later when Moses was grown up, he saw an Egyptian beating an Israelite. Now, Moses, seeing this, he knew like it wasn't right. So what does he do? He strikes the Egyptian down. Strikes the Egyptian down, and then he hid. Now, he was very fearful that he would die. So what does Moses do? He flees Egypt in all of its entirety. He flees Egypt. Um, so and yeah, like I said, he fled Egypt, and he was gone for many years at this point. So many more years pass, and Israel is still suffering from the same oppression that they were suffering from, years ago. Um, and so at this point, Moses, by the way, was a shepherd for his father-in-law. And one night, he comes across a burning bush, which, of course, this was miraculous because the bush, although it was on fire and it burned, it was never burnt. It never got consumed by the fire. Um, Now we've seen God's presence compared to fire a few times in the Bible, namely with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The fire, surrounded them. That was God's presence protecting them. So and this bush right here, just again similar to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, it never consumed. It was never consumed by the fire, similar to them. Now, so yeah, it was burning because God's presence was upon that bush, right? Now, God calls out to Moses and he tells him, take off your sandals, come near. Of course, telling him to take off his sandals because the ground he was on was holy ground, in the presence of God. So, he's telling him that come near to the presence of God, and he tells Moses who he is and tells him he's heard Israel's groans and seen their pain. And God tells Moses that he has to go tell Pharaoh to let his people go, to let the Israelites go. Of course, Moses, he was very fearful to even step foot back into Egypt. Again, he hadn't been in numerous years back to Egypt. And so he was very scared to do it. So of course, like him being fearful of it, he questions God and he asks, "Why me? I'm nothing special. He won't listen to me." God tells Moses that he will be with him, and that would be enough. So God says to Moses, "I'll be with you, and that should be enough." You know. Um, So, and I have a little verse in here too. It's going to be Exodus chapter 3, verses 19 and 20. But I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless compelled by a mighty hand. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all the wonders that I will do in it. After that, he will let you go. So, what is it saying? So basically, that verse is saying, again, like God will be with Moses, and God knows that Pharaoh wouldn't let the Israelites go unless being compelled by something, which we now know as the 10 plagues. Um, so, even after all that God had said to Moses, Moses was still doubting. He was doubting that anyone would believe him or listen to his voice. Like, he thought no one would believe that God had sent him. I mean, just think about this. Moses would have to say, yeah, a burning bush talks to me. I mean, it sounded so like it was like out of this world. Like, he's like, no one's gonna believe me that like God has spoken to me through this burning bush that was miraculously on fire. So I do have another verse, by the way, Exodus chapter 4, verses 6 through 8. Again, the Lord said to him, "Put your hand inside your cloak." And he put his hands inside his cloak. When he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous, like snow. Then God said, "Put your hand back inside your cloak." So he put his hand back inside his cloak. When he took it out, behold, it was restored like the rest of his flesh. If they will not believe you, God said, or listen to the first sign, they may believe the latter sign. So why did I include this verse? I mean, it's just showing, again, how miraculous God is and how Moses just should have answered from that first call. I mean, this Moses puts his hand in his cloak, it's leprous, puts it back in, and all of a sudden it's healed. I mean, just showing how, like, what God really can do. And again, this was God reassuring, if they will not believe you on the first sign, they will believe you on the latter sign, right? So even after this, even this, like, the miracle that God shows to Moses, Moses still makes another excuse. He says that his speech is not eloquent enough, and that he's not good with words, and that he's like his like he's a little slow, kind of, right? So, like, Exodus chapter 4, verses 11 through 12, then the Lord said to him, "Who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be your mouth and teach you what you shall speak." So again, that's just God again showing, like, Moses, all these little excuses you're making, it's it's not really a good excuse, because I'm the Lord. I can do all this for you. I can make your speech better. I will guide you. Pharaoh won't listen to you. I'll show him why he should listen. Again, God just reminding him, I'll be right there with you. It's like we're going to be side to side. I'll be right there. So finally, after all these excuses, Moses just flat out says it. "Oh, my Lord, please send someone else." This was showing that Moses really just didn't want to go, and still feared Egypt and figured he'd die, even after all the signs God gave Moses. Even after all these things that, in this little conversation that God and Moses were having, even all these, like, little miracles that I say little miracles, but honestly, just to pull out your hand and then it be leprous, and then to put it back and then it's not, like, that's like a big miracle, right? But even, like, after all these things that God showed him, finally Moses just admits, "I just don't want to go. Why me? I don't want to go. Just don't send me." Um, so eventually Moses agrees to go. He goes with his brother Aaron. Now, when they go to Egypt, they tell Pharaoh to let the Lord's people go. Of course, Pharaoh's heart is hardened, just like God said it would be. And he says, "Who is the Lord?" He doesn't let the people go and questions God. And of course, since he did that, the Lord would show him and all of Egypt exactly who he is. See, you don't question the Lord, because he'll show you. And as we can see, Exodus chapter 7, verse 5, "The Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord." That right there is a direct response, honestly, to just that. It was in a previous chapter. I think, I forgot exactly what chapter, but when Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord?" it was in a previous chapter. And of course, God now responds, "I did not mean to flip that. I think I might have accidentally stuck my middle finger up. Oopsies. The Egyptians shall know." Yeah. The Egyptians. Cut this.
Re-say what you said.
Yeah, I'm going to re-say it. I'm going to re-say it completely. Cut this.
Also, you should explain what leprous is.
I didn't. Anyway. So again, who is the Lord? And now God's going to show him exactly who he is. In Exodus chapter 7, verse 5, "The Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring out the people of Israel from among them." Now, Pharaoh refuses to let them go numerous times. And each time, God sends a plague. And we know that there were 10 plagues. Finally, he agrees to let God's people go after his firstborn son dies in the final plague. Finally, they were free from the slavery and the oppression. But this wasn't the end. It actually wasn't even close to the end. That's why this is the second book in the Bible, because we figure out in later chapters, I mean, even though Moses and their whole generation had died off, we see they don't even get to the promised land, until later in the Bible. But that's for a different day. But so so they're getting out, and as Moses and the other Israelites were leaving Egypt, they have to cross the Red Sea, right? And they had to cross it to get out. So Pharaoh, at this point, he had let them go, but he eventually regretted it and began to chase them with his army. Now, of course, he wasn't like right behind them. He was like they were. I'm pretty sure a couple days ahead in their journey. I think so. But of course, their army. What do they have? They have horses. They have chariots. I mean, the Israelites. They were just walking. Um, so God, through Moses, parted the Red Sea with the staff that Moses put down. Parted the Red Sea, and there was a wall of water on each side. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, to part like a sea, like I mean, I'm sure the walls were huge and everything. Like just to see that, I mean, I'm sure you can probably see little like fishes or something like swimming through it, stuff like that. Like just to see two walls of water on each side was probably like insane. Um, and so, um, so now they were about halfway through it, right? They were about halfway across the Red Sea, and what do they see? They look behind them. They see the Egyptian army closing in on them. So now they're like, we gotta come on, y'all. Let's pick up the little kids. Let's just go. We gotta get there quicker, right? So all the Israelites they hurry out, and as the Egyptian forces get to the middle of it, the last Israelite crosses, and what happens? The Lord brought the waters right back down, just like that, just down right on that army. Of course, drowning them out. Finally, the Israelites they were free and they trusted in God, and surely enough, He delivered. Now, what does any of this have to do with today? Well, God, He called out to Moses in the burning bush. And, Moses responds with fear and with doubt. A lot of us, we may feel the same way. We might feel anxious or like we're not enough. And it may push us to doubt our ability to step into God's call on our life. How does God respond to Moses? He says, I will be with you. It's the same response for us, guys. I will be with you. You're going to that job interview, I will be with you. You're going through school and you have a hard exam. God's right there with you. And He's saying, hey, don't pick that one, pick the next one. Like He's right there. You're just driving to work and you get to somewhere safely. Why? Because God was right there. God's right there in every situation. He's right there. Anything that seems hard, I mean, He's right there. You're at work and maybe you have like a hard project coming up or a hard presentation. Maybe you're not good with speaking to people. I'm not, but maybe you're not good with it, and now you have to do this big presentation. I will be with you. God's right there. He will be our mouth, our words. He's right there. He's guiding us. He's right there. The major point of this is that, you know, we're still going to be fearful in those situations, right? In an exam that we have to do good on, we're still going to be fearful. Faith isn't going to bring an absence of fear. And you can write this down if you want. But faith is not going to bring an absence of fear, but it's about trusting in God even when that fear is present. It's about knowing faith over fear. You know what I'm saying? It's about understanding that, though, about knowing that whatever I fear for tomorrow, whatever I fear on that day, just know that my faith is going to be stronger than that fear, and that I'm going to trust in God that I'll get through that. Why? I will be with you. That's why, because God is right there, right by our side, right in this room. Um, so in Exodus 14, so Moses led the people in Exodus 14. At this point, he led the people to the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army. People panicked, but Moses said, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." That's Exodus chapter 14, verse 14. How often do we feel like we're stuck between anxiety and the unknown? We're scared to take that step because we can't see the path over here. We can see this one, and this one promises certain things, and we want to go on this one, but ultimately that's not the path that we need to be on. We need to be on this one. This is the one that God wants us on. We don't have to see the end because He sees the end. We just got to trust in Him and follow Him that whole time. He's holding the flashlight. Why am I going to go first? You know? Really, I'm going through a dark tunnel. Why am I going first if He's holding the flashlight? I'm going to follow right behind Him. You know? um so we might feel like we're stuck between anxiety and the unknown, like we're at our own Red Sea. Like how are we going to get through this? It could be about future. It could be about, family struggles or mental health, whatever it is. But that's why faith is trusting God even when you don't see that way forward. That's all. That's what faith is. It's about trusting in Him when you don't see the end of that path, when you don't even see a foot ahead of you. But it's about following behind Him. It's about trusting in Him, knowing that He's going to lead you to where you need to be. Why? Because He wants the best for you. Faith, it doesn't always feel like progress. Sometimes it's about being patient and standing firm. Now, finally, to kind of sum it all up, right? Faith, it's about trusting in God's timing. It took 10 plagues in Egypt before the Israelites were finally freed. And each time, of course, Moses asking the same question, or, let my people go, let God's people go, let God's people go. Many people would quit after asking Pharaoh the first or the second time, let alone asking like 10 times. Faith is knowing that God's there and that He will deliver, even if it takes just a little bit of time. Even if, we want this so bad right now, but God's saying, what you want there, I will give you tenfold. Just wait a little bit longer. Wait a little bit longer. Trust that process. Just hang in there. I promise you, God hasn't left you. And He doesn't plan to leave you anytime soon. Have that faith that Moses had. Even though at first Moses doubted, he wasn't perfect. Neither are we. What happened in the end, though? He trusted in God. He became a great example of that faith. So, just to do a little summary, what happened, right? God calls Moses, reaches out to him. Moses doubts, but God reassures him. Finally, Moses goes, he confronts Pharaoh. And then, of course, we see the Red Sea and the final deliverance and everything like that. And listen, like Moses, we're going to doubt, right? We're going to doubt. We're going to feel anxious or unqualified at many points. But, I mean, just like that's like the song, like, He can move the mountains. Where nothing is too hard for God. Um, and even though Moses started doubtful, he became a great example of faith. God used someone imperfect to do something incredible. And God can do the exact same thing with you, with you, with you, with you, with you. All of us, with me. He can do the exact same thing. He can do the exact same thing with us. So where's God calling you to trust in him? Where's he calling you? Is he calling you to do this thing, and are you still afraid? Because I urge y'all to just don't be afraid. If it's that first step that you've been dreading taking, but you feel like that's the way I need to go. But it's hard and I have to do all this. No, you're not alone. You're not alone through it. God is with you every single step of the way, just like he was with Moses. So I want to leave y'all with that doubting God and doubting that he can get you through this situation. It's a human response, and it's okay to have that response, to question, like, why do I have to go this way, God? I don't want to go that way. Or I won't be strong enough to do this, God. But know that you're enough. You're more than enough to God. You're qualified, more than qualified to God. And you'll get through this. You'll get through it with God. Sometimes, like I said, you got to be patient in a situation, then be patient. You got to just take that first big step. You don't know if there's a gap in the floor over here. You don't know if you might fall, but as soon as you take that step, there's you know where that path is gonna end up going and stuff. Like, take that step, take that leap. Whatever call he has on your life, don't ignore it. Run towards it. So that's how I'm gonna leave us off on today. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm gonna close us off in prayer. Go ahead and bow your head and close your eyes. So, dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for even just waking us up today, and giving us, everything that we have, giving me the ability to move my arms, even though they're really sore, to move my legs, even though they're really sore, and to talk, to to be standing, to sing and worship, to be in your presence. Thank you for that, God. Thank you for being there always, even when I doubt it. I know that you're right there. You're right there with me. Even when I do something that I shouldn't do, I know that you're right there with me. Maybe, bowing your head in disappointment, but I know you're right there with me. And help us as we go throughout, whether it be jobs, interviews, schooling, whatever it may be, Lord, to know that you're right there. You're right there with us, whether we have to take that first step into something new, a brand new chapter, but we think it's too hard, just to know that we can just stand still, we can breathe, and know that you're right there. We can talk to you and know that you're right there. We can ask you, hey, what's the next step? How do I get through this? And know that you're right there. Lord, I do want to lift up in prayer Jess, as she just can never seem to catch a break. Lord, you know the situation over there, and I ask that you please remind her that you're right there. That you're right there by her bed, right there, every moment. Pastor Mom, I'm just gonna call you that, Pastor Mom. She had that vision. Just, yes, on Easter, the legs. I forgot the exact vision, but you know what I'm saying. Like, we ended up figuring out the real meaning behind that, Lord. That she's yours. Oh, Jesus written on the legs. That's what it was. Because, she hasn't been able to walk, but, we got her over here a few times and we had her walking. To know that these legs are yours. To know that Jess is yours. It's just really comforting to know that. So I ask that you please be with her situation because I know she's surrounded by a lot of demons, and they try to attack her every day because we're taking Jess away from Satan. And the devil, he doesn't like that. He doesn't like another person, you know, getting out of getting out of just the pain and turmoil that Satan had her in. He doesn't like that. He doesn't like that Jess is yours now, Lord. But help us with this situation. Help us to, give us that reminder that you're still here. You're still here with us. And that devil, he isn't going to win. He loses every time. You win 11 out of 10 times, Lord. You win all the battles. You win all of them. And I know that the devil is just scared. And so he's trying to do everything he can. And so I ask that you would please be with her situation and help us to just also, just like I said, just remember that you're there. You're there in every situation. And Jess is still here. And that's something that's important to remember because there's many times when we thought that she wouldn't be. And she's still here. You still have that plan for her life, Lord. So please, like I said, Lord, just please be with her. Be with her father. Help him to just, you know, find you. Would again like to keep Sean's family in our prayers. They're a very loving family, and just so many people so many people love them and everything. And Lord, I want to offer my love to them, Lord, but also, just remind them, like I said, Lord, that you're still there, even in the worst of situations, even when it feels like you're not. Lord, you are there. Um, and again, keeping Pastor Shannon in your prayers and all the family in your prayers as well, in our prayers as well, Lord. Just show them that love and again remind them that you're still there. And yeah, Lord, thank you for everything. Sorry, it was a long prayer, but also be with any unspoken prayer requests that haven't been mentioned, Lord. Be with all those, whether it be online. Let every person online know that I love them and that you love them and that you're there. Let them know that I'm praying. I'm praying for them. Whatever prayer requests they have, whatever is going on in their walk of life, Lord, please just be with them, Lord. Be with them. Thank you for everything and help us to just have a good week. And just I pray, amen.